Are you looking for a job that can lead to a career opportunity? MCC and OPS have teamed up to provide education training and job opportunities. We're looking for people that want to learn and work at the same time. We have open enrollment for training in the field of construction and job placement. For more information, contact us at 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org. Again, that phone number is 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org. Are you looking for a job that can lead to a career opportunity? MCC and OPS have teamed up to provide education training and job opportunities. We're looking for people that want to learn and work at the same time. We have open enrollment for training in the field of construction and job placement. For more information, contact us at 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org. Again, that phone number is 317-991-3150 or email info@mccindiana.org.
Black people need to own our own businesses, which will provide an economic base. Teach our youth to become self-sufficient. Learn how to maximize our political affiliations and fight for criminal justice reform. You just tuned in to Black Power Presents with your host, Antonio Lipscomb. Come on, let's talk.
All right, Facebook family and my YouTube viewers, welcome again. It's also a wonderful week that we have. You have just tuned in to Black Power Presents, and we're just excited again to give you another podcast, if you will. Right now, I'm going to be welcoming some of the finest men that I know this side of heaven, just in here in Indianapolis. That's doing extraordinary work here in Indianapolis. And I want to share with you how you can get involved to help in the causes of what's going on in our community. Oftentimes, we fight a lot of different fights all across the country. We're good at fighting for other people. But when are we going to stand up and fight for ourselves? And this week, this broadcast, we're going to be giving you a clear way on how you can get involved in the protest of White Castle on 38th Street. And we're going to give you pointed, detailed information with the owner that's adjacent to White Castles. And we're going to explain to you why we had this problem. And we got Representative John L. Bartlett, which is a great friend of mine, a mentor of mine, that is also going to come on the show with James Leonard. And we're going to explain to you what we're doing here. Folks, listen. Black people, like I said in the front of our show, needs to own their own businesses. Not only do we need to own our own businesses, but we need to support the businesses that are existing. The only way we can thrive and flourish in this day and time is us coming together to take care of us. You know, I'm respectful of the fact that we did have an election and we were successful with getting Joe Biden into the White House as well as Kamala Harris. But the reality is this. If we do not have a plan and a strategy to come together to make a difference will never be made for us. So this is a unique broadcast. It's going to be very pertinent to what's locally going on in here in Indianapolis, in the city of Indianapolis, and you have a chance to get involved. Right now, I am going to bring on camera with me two fine gentlemen that's sitting there ready to go. Please keep in mind, my Black Power Present followers, listen, if you want to be a part of this show, you can simply dial in, which when you dial in, make sure you wait till after 6 o'clock and you hear what the show is going to be about. It's going to be about Black businesses, but it's going to be specifically about a Pacific Black business here in Indianapolis, which we have James Leonard, which is actually the owner of this business, is what we're going to begin to give some more details later. But if you want to be a part of this show, feel free to call 317-239-1310. That's 317-239-1310 to be a part of this. And also, if you want to get involved with this initiative of boycotting, we'll give you the detailed information as to how you can get involved. You know, when the people stand together, we are the ones who are able to make a difference in our community. And of course, when we get Black businesses in the community locally, what does that mean? That means that unemployment goes down in our community. Why? Because we're going to hire people that look like us. We're going to get people who may not get a chance somewhere else have a chance with us. That's the reason why we need Black businesses. And, you know, when I speak of Black businesses, it's not that we're saying that we won't sell our products or our services to others, or that we're so inclusive that we don't include anybody else. No, that's not the case. When you go to Chinatown, Chinatown has their businesses. When you go to Mexico Town, Mexicans have their businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not saying that that we're just isolated people looking to try to support Black businesses isolated. No, we're saying anyone can come and participate. Well, how you gentlemen doing today? I'm gonna take you off mute here. You doing all right?
Doing great.
Doing great, sir. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Bartlett, man, why you trying to come on camera looking so cool with that cap on, man? I see you there, doctor.
I do what I do.
You know, you always cool, man. I'm gonna try to get there one day, doc. I'm trying to get there one day. Yeah, but Mr. Bartlett, when I spoke with you, and you know how we roll, we roll together. Anytime I had any type of a concern of any sort, you've always been a listening ear and a concerned heart. You have a big heart for our community, and that's something that I want to spread and appreciate. And before we go into this, just keep in mind, in about 5 minutes, we're going to be going on air with WTLC 1310 The Light, as well as 92.7. But while we're waiting, we're just going to go ahead and stir this thing up to my YouTube viewers and also my Facebook viewers. Please like, share, comment, and I'm going to try to see what I can do to share this show while we're talking. So if you see me looking down, it's not that I'm not paying attention. I'm just the architect of this thing as well as I'm talking. But you will aware me of Mr. Leonard here, Mr. James Leonard. And from what I'm learning, he's a fine entrepreneur looking to do great things here in Indianapolis. You don't find a lot of strong business owners here that look like us and look like you're trying to do some support for him in relations to what's going on. And so do you want to speak on that for a second before we actually go on the radio?
Yes, Antonio, and thank you again for this opportunity. First off, Colonel James Leonard, retired from the United States Army, is one of my constituents. Aside from being my constituent, he's a Black entrepreneur who has chose to retire in the great state of Indiana. He's born and raised in Florida, but he chose to retire here. And he has been investing in the Black community, and he continues to invest in the Black community. And we need to support that. We need to support him and let him know that we're here for him. We're here with him. We're not going to stand behind him. We're going to stand with him and make sure that he's treated fairly and not have his property taken from him.
Yes, and I think that's phenomenal. We're on the back of our show, gentlemen, so let me just go ahead and get this set up while we're talking. Now, far as the show itself, far as the email for the show, I don't know if I'll be able to shoot that to you, but we still can do the show over the phone like we normally do, right? You hear me? Okay, so we're just going to wait. You know how we do. We'll get this going. This is sort of like the back of the show. But Mr. Bartlett, you were saying that you guys served in the military together?
No. I'm not a veteran. This is one of my constituents. Mr. James Leonard served 28 plus years in the military and retired as a colonel, active duty military, not reserve, active duty. And and he was born and raised in Florida, but he chose to retire here in the great state of Indiana. And he's been investing in the great state of Indiana since being here. He purchased this land just north of the White Castle at 38th and Keystone. And he wanted to put a business here, and they're blocking him from utilizing all of his land. Now, I stand with him. Mr. James Leonard's doing this and not using a dime of taxpayer money. He's not asking for any tax abatements or anything like that. He's coming in, he's investing in this community, spending his own money, and I think that we should help him as much as we possibly can. As a matter of fact, I plan to get a letter off to the mayor this week coming up and asking the mayor to join our fight.
Well, I think that is phenomenal. And of course, we're going to hear from Mr. Leonard in a minute, because I want to make sure we get the full impact of the show going on here. They're going to be playing some commercials and whatnot, so don't worry about that part. But after the commercials, then we're going to get Mr. Leonard on air. But let me hear from Mr. Leonard real quick. How you doing, Mr. Leonard? You doing all right?
Outstanding. Yes, I'm doing fine.
Great. And first of all, I appreciate that. And listen, thank you for your service, man. I got a son that's still over in New Mexico, my younger son. He served in the military, in the Air Force, and kind of hung around, liking the climate and those rocks and things of that nature over there, and waters and so forth. So I'm trying to get him to come back closer to this way, where he just loves it over there. So, and I got a chance to stay on base when he was in the military and see some unique fighter planes and all that sort of thing. So I understand that. I felt like I was almost locked up when I was on base, though. So I probably won't do that again. Maybe staring at your ID.
Just tell him thanks for his service.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably of a younger generation, but we keep passing the baton so others to continue to serve this great nation of ours.
Absolutely. Like I said, just staying on base, just kind of gave me a different perspective, because they got to watch everything. And I'm like, man, just to have your life under a microscope like that, and you voluntarily do that, it's like, okay. Absolutely. Yeah, but you have to have love for country to do that. So again, from the heart.
I can tell you, I spent 28 years, and all of them were great. I wouldn't do it any other way. If I could rewind, I'd do it all over. So I've enjoyed my service.
Yes, sir.
The time in the military, service to country all over the world. Yeah. So it's super. Yeah, and I highly recommend it.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. And so they're getting ready to bring us on air in a minute. So I'm just waiting on him to do that. So yeah, thank you for your service, man. You're gonna play the commercials?
I'll play them at the end.
You gonna put them at the end? You ready to bring us on now?
Yep.
Okay.
20 seconds left on this last commercial from the last hour.
Okay, you got the intro of the show ready?
Yeah, I got everything.
Okay, all right. Just let me know when you're ready. Just count me in. Okay, so yeah, gentlemen. I think that really, with your part of the service and having that background, really kind of.
Right, here we go.
You ready?
Yep. Here we go. Playing the disclaimer now.
Okay. All right. Just be patient with us, Facebook family and friends, as well as our YouTube viewers. Be patient with us. We are firing up and we're ready to go. Just getting ready to get on to the broadcast.
Finger intro.
We're playing the intro now. Some support for him in relation. Thank you for your patience.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, you're live.
All right, here we go again. Black Power Presents. I'm your host, Antonio Lipscomb. And gentlemen, I can actually hear you in the studio, so I'm quite sure my radio listening audience can hear you as well. Hey, Pastor, if you want to hang around, man, go on and hang around, though. If you're there, just have a seat. We're talking about black businesses today.
Yeah, I like this a little.
I guess these guys can't hear me at all. But anyway, let me keep going.
Trying to help sell some stuff. And I think a lot of people they can still.
Okay. Okay, you guys give me 1 second here. Hey, Brandon,
Yes.
we're on the air and we actually can hear your conversation while we're on the air.
Everything's up. That's really cool.
Huh?
Okay. All right, keep it going. That's your one guy.
Okay, I think our radio listen audience is hearing you as well. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Sorry about that, gentlemen. A little technical difficulties. We got to get straight because we'll make sure things is right. So when we get to hearing what needs to be heard, everybody can be able to be on one accord. So with that in mind, this is Black Power Presents. If you want to be a part of this broadcast, you can simply go call in. It'll be area code 317-239-1310, 317-239-1310, and we can get started with your calls coming in. Now, at the top of the hour, I introduced John L. Bartlett, which is one of the finest representatives here in Indianapolis that we know of. And also we have a business owner, James Leonard, which is actually someone that Representative John L. Bartlett introduced to me. And so I actually want to give a space and time for Representative John Bartlett just to kind of help the radio listening audience get caught up to where we're going. Can you kind of repeat some of the things you were talking about before, Mr. Representative?
Absolutely. First, Antonio, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on the show. That not only am I a state representative, but I'm also an advocate out here in the community. Mr. James Leonard is one of my constituents. He served in the military 28 plus years, active duty, retired as a colonel, and chose to, although he was born and raised in Florida, he chose to settle here in the great state of Indiana. And we're so thankful to have him. But he's also invested his businesses in our community. He bought the property just north of White Castle to put a self-storage place there. They are hindering him from doing what he chooses to do on his own land. Now, I find that offensive, and I stand with him because we have to get that corrected. Now, James Leonard is doing this with his own money. Most businesses that come to Indiana want a tax abatement and want some kind of tax relief in their what they spend. He's not asking the state of Indiana nor the city of Indianapolis to give him any kind of tax breaks. He's just wanting fair treatment with his own land. And as I've said before, this is nothing new. Historically, our land have been taken from us. When you talk about abatement, when you start talking about how things have gone historically with Black folk and their land, they seem to be comfortable with taking our land. And so I just think it's time now that we stand up, stand tall, stand with our brother and say no more, enough is enough. And that's why I'm here.
Well, that's awesome. That is really awesome. Mr. Leonard, I want you to kind of, talk a little bit about who you are and what you do, if you will, if you'd be so kind to help me with that.
I certainly will. First of all, I want to thank you again, Mr. Lipscomb, for giving me this opportunity on your airway to talk to the public, to talk to the community. Also want to give a resounding thanks to Representative John Bartlett, who has been there with me since day one in the fight. And so I certainly appreciate that kind of support. And I would not have this kind of momentum if it wasn't for his status in the community and the respect that the community has for him and others like him. So thanks in that regard. I'm a retired Army veteran and served every place the Army told me to serve. My last assignment was that as, in essence, paymaster or vendor paymaster out at Fort Harrison, where I paid all of the Army vendors all over the world. And very rewarding job, but that's where I ended my career. When that happened in 2007, I opened up a business and I wanted the business to be in our neighborhood. So I bought a place off the corner of 38th and Carrollton, which is in the 46205 area code. And that's where my office was, with all of the businesses activity going on from that central location until I moved here. We primarily support the Department of Defense with a lot of contracts, and they range from doing services at air bases, at Army bases in Alabama, to Pine Bluff, Arkansas, Florida with the Navy, Defense Logistics Agency, as well as local businesses. So we've been doing that, relatively successful, and we decided to move to this location here at 3820 North Keystone Avenue. As Representative Bartley just said, just north of White Castle, that's on the corner of 38th and Keystone. We moved here we bought the property in June of 2018. And shortly after that, that's when we started experiencing some problems with my neighbor. And if you want me to elaborate at this point, I certainly will.
Please
okay.
elaborate.
Okay.
Yeah,
More specifically, when I bought the land in June of 2018, I bought it from the previous owner that basically owned the whole block. Palmadars used to own this whole block, and they subdivided it, and they leased a part of it to White Castle, and they were leasing this part of the building to a tire company. This part of the lot. When I bought this property, the purchase agreement said I was buying approximately 2.43 acres, and we had a survey not done at that time. We had a survey that they gave me that was conducted back in the 1990s that says, here's what the property boundaries consist of. And I said, okay. We did several things to make sure that there were no environmental issues and issues of that nature, but nothing had to do with boundaries. When we bought the property, closed on the property, I moved my office here from Carrollton. And from this location, from the original intent, we were going to make the back part of this building self-storage. And when we got a more up-to-date survey, we went back to Palmer and said, okay, here's what we plan to do with this land. And that's when Palmer says, no, that part of your land until 2030 has been sublet to White Castle. And I said, why wasn't that in the purchase agreement? Why am I just finding this out? And what are we going to do to rectify this issue? And their response was, not an issue. You should have known. Just move on and accept it. And I said, no, that's not how this is going to work. And so they said that that issue was identified in a lease between White Castle and Palmer Properties. It wasn't until 9 months, 12 months after I closed on the property that they were able to give me a copy of the lease. And that copy of the lease, had the sign saying I wouldn't disclose it, et cetera, et cetera. And it showed two things in there that they were trying to force me to live by that I had no idea when I purchased the property. And to me, those two things are so significant. The value of the property would have been less than what I paid for it had I known that. Here are the two conditions. Number one is that even though I now own the property, this lease provision says I cannot build anything within 200 feet radius of White Castle. So in essence, White Castle got a bubble around my whole building and say I can't build anything for 200 feet of their store. To me, that's ludicrous. You can't make that kind of demand on a new property owner. That's almost like telling a residential homeowner that you just bought a new house but you can't put up a fence on your property. You can't put flowers on your front yard, in front yard, until your neighbor says it's okay. That became a real issue. Then the second issue was my boundary says I own a certain part of this. I own all of this land. And White Castle is saying that they can drive across my southwest portion of my lot until 2030, pay me nothing for it, and basically they have no responsibility for it. And that part of my lot is 25 feet by 158 feet, and it serves as one of 3 entrance and exits to White Castle coming off Hillside. The average person don't even know that exists, and from the 2+ years I've been here, I've got cameras back there, and nobody uses it to go to White Castle. White Castle has no economic benefit from having that land. So they will tell you that they tried to negotiate with me to settle to give me that land back. Here's what they offered. They said, instead of 200 feet bubble on the front and back of your building, we want you to agree that you will have a 70 feet bubble. So you can't put anything within 70 feet of the front of your store. You have to have a fence that's so high that we can see through. You can only plant shrubs that are 2 feet or less in height. And by the way, you can't park any vehicles in that area that will block somebody seeing a White Castle sign. Because my view was I was going to make this a self-storage. One of the annexes to self-storage is to have U-Haul rental trucks. So I've applied and became a certified dealer for U-Haul. I said I was going to park the trucks on that side of the building. White Castle says, no, you can't park those trucks there because they'll block our view. You can't park anything for 70 feet of our store. And I said, that's malarkey. That is unheard of. I'm not going to live by that rule. And they would tell you, and they're right. I sued them to say that's not enforceable. And I won.
Right.
All right. And after I won that case, I said, now I went back to Palmer Properties and White Castle and said, guys, that piece of this thing is over. Do we need to keep fighting?
Go ahead,
please.
Yeah, because you dropping a lot, and I want to try to take it in bite sizes. We got about another 45 minutes to break this thing down. And for my Facebook viewers, YouTube viewers, please post this, like, share, post this. We're boycotting White Castles on 38th Street. We'll get to that in a moment. But let me interject for a second. And even for those who want to be a part of this broadcast, you can simply call in. We're taking callers today, 317-239-1310. This is the People's Show. So you have a right to call in at any given moment. But let me say this, because a lot of times we cannot connect our struggles. When you're talking about what you're trying to do, and the people are saying, okay, well, some people, I'm not saying everybody, but I'm just saying how some people think, oh, well, that don't affect me. I don't care. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing that. Well, the truth of the matter is, White Castles ain't good for nobody anyway. Even if even if the man, even if you don't agree with Mr. Leonard and what he's doing, White Castles is not healthy. That's for one. But for two, when you look at how this affects us when it comes to Black businesses coming into our community, what does that mean? Like Representative John L. Bartlett stated, that means that we're going to have a tax base that cares about us. That means that when he starts being successful, we start being successful. Why? Because he's hiring people that look like us, which in return, those employees are going to be paying taxes. And what do those taxes do, fellas? Those taxes go into the school, right? Those property taxes go into school. Then we just have a school board election and whatnot. And we talked about how District 150 is struggling financially and whatnot, the more you get more homeowners in that look like us and more businesses that look like us, then it gives us a chance to be able to understand why we need to fight. Now, gentlemen, I got Larry. He's getting ready. He's calling in. He's a faithful caller. He calls in every week. So we go ahead and let him ask this question. Go ahead, Larry, with your question. How you doing, Larry?
I'm just fine, Anthony, and your guest. But you know what the problem is? And I had a problem myself. I used to deal real estate during the 80s before the crash. Okay, what happened is this title company did not disclose that. I know he's got title insurance if he had a close of the magnitude, but what happens now, and it's a doctrine in real estate, so he really needs to be careful what he does, because in a real estate transaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
If all the I's are not dotted and the T's crossed, it says if, now listen to this real close, it says if, as if it never happened. So actually, the Palmer Dodge people who sold that to him, they may be lurking in the background to let him make the improvements and build that building on that lot. And then they can come and take that back, and the courts won't have them not one bit. And the title company, they're going to run scared too. But what he done is he get back to his research, and real estate is very important, because if you don't have it correct, it's as if it never happened. And that's a doctrine that's hard to move out of the way. And they assume that when you purchase something, you do a thorough research, and you need to approach your title company.
Well, I knew that was going to come up, gentlemen. I knew that was going to come up.
I can speak to that.
Yeah, go ahead and speak to it.
Speak to that. And I appreciate the call from Larry and his insights. We have had full engagement with the title company. The title company did represent us with a lawsuit with a 200 feet restriction, 200 feet bubble around White Castle. They tried to informally convince the legal folks from Chicago Title, which I have the title insurance. They tried to have a conversation with both White Castle and Palmer Properties without filing a lawsuit on my behalf to say, guys, you know that's unenforceable. You can't do that. You know you will lose this case. So you need to just drop that issue. And both Palmer Properties and White Castle was insisting that they push that issue of restricting me on the front as a way of saying you can have the back if you give us this 70 feet of your front. And it got to the point where I said to Chicago Title, enough is enough. I'm not going to negotiate with them about all the land I purchased. And as a result, Chicago Title actually filed a lawsuit on my behalf that was one that says that 200 feet restriction was not enforceable. The title company said to the second piece of this, because anybody on this call, if you look at your title insurance policy, the first line on what's called the disclaimer page, the declaration page, it says any disputes over easements perceived, recorded, unrecorded, or otherwise are not represented by this policy. And Chicago Title is telling me repeatedly that we cannot represent you against this backside of your property because we don't do litigation over easement. So therefore, it is my responsibility to take on that fight. When I went to White Castle and Palmer Properties and says, hey guys, this don't make sense, they said, we're going to fight anyway. And they asked me, what was I willing to pay? How much more are you willing to pay if we give that back to you?
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not willing to pay you nothing. And then, then another attorney told me, you should go to White Castle. An attorney on behalf of White Castle said, you should go to White Castle with your hat in hand, kind of asking for them to start over and forgive you for being so adamant. And I said, that ain't gonna work.
Right. So I want to run everything back because here's the problem. Sometimes we do not get involved directly unless we feel like it's us. And that's really a selfish way of how we have decided to be. You can hear the outcry of what you're saying. You can very well clearly hear the level of injustice that you're experiencing. And the problem with us is the fact that we will then turn around and try to figure out how is it your fault, but in return, we're never sympathetic about the fact of the facts. We try to just make it each other's fault. Like, oh, you should have done better research and all this sort of thing. Well, the reality of it is sometimes things happen and it's not necessarily someone's fault. It just means that we have to learn to stick together so that we can bring a resolve. And so, that's where I'm at with that. And Mr. Bartley, can you kind of speak on that, man? Because let me say this before you say that. Okay. Before I ask you to speak on, let me tell you a little bit about a dilemma. I run a transitional house. It's leased out to me. I got these guys in there renting rooms. Okay. Now, because of the coronavirus, there was a mandate that you couldn't put nobody out the house for about 5 months. Now, these people, majority of them get a check every month, right? But because they knew they couldn't be put out, they kept their rent all 5 months of the moratorium coming from the governor. Okay. So when I get to court, try to speak on this to the judge is like he's feeling sorry for the guy who kept the 5 months worth of rent and extended another month for him. The other 3 people that the other guy talked into that we got evicted decided not to pay, went to court. The judge said, oh, well, now I need to set a hearing. I said, well, Your Honor, why do you need to set a hearing? And all 3 of them said they didn't pay their rent. Oh, well, I still need to talk about it. Okay, so they set a hearing. Hearing's on the 14th of October. They don't show up for the hearing, right? Supposed to get kicked out on the 23rd. The constable says, I'm not coming out because you didn't call me on Friday. I called him to have him come. He says he does the evictions on Monday. I call him. He's supposed to be there on Monday. He said, you didn't call me on that Friday to stay on the list. Like he's got a huge list. He was off work at 3 o'clock. So I'm like, well, you off at 3 and it's Monday. So you mean to tell me you get off about 2 or 3 o'clock every day and you only do kickouts on Mondays and you off at 2 or 3? And so then he says, I'll come back the following week. So I make sure I call him on that Friday, waiting for him on that Monday, and the judge excuses himself from the case. So now I got to go back to court to let Center Township hear this same case that come from Washington Township. And then the judge gives these individuals who have an income, who's not paying rent, another 2 weeks. And I still am hoping that same constable that didn't come out twice, I'm hoping that same constable will be willing to come out after the time expires for the extended writ. Writ is when you get people kicked out, But this type of taking advantage of owners and landlords and people of color is really starting to become a popular thing, because this city is so racist to the point that they don't want to see Black businesses succeed. Now, this man, James here, he's coming with a great idea for our community. You know, we've complained about the homicides. We complain about high unemployment. We talk about people needing jobs, especially through a COVID virus. This man is fighting to create an opportunity for us so that we can succeed. And then the only thing we want to do is try to call in to try to microscope it, to try to figure out if he done anything wrong. And the reality of it is he hasn't done absolutely nothing wrong. He's doing everything right. And still yet the system is fixed against people like him and like myself. You know, and Mr. Bartlett, that's the reason why I want to give a backdrop of this, is because you have seen this go on all throughout Indiana, and they're talking about how they want to outroot racism and discrimination. But do you see this, especially for Black businesses like James, who has not done anything wrong, everything right, yet, you know, things are being scrutinized to where it's trying to turn against him? Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yes. First, let me say this. You will not get the same constable if you leave Washington Township and go to Center Township. You'll get the constable from Center Township. So that's a plus for you.
Oh, no, Mr. Bartlett, the crazy thing about it, I talked to the judge. They said the Washington Township judge is constable's got to come out. And I put an email to him and a call to him, and he hadn't responded. But now go ahead. This ain't about me. This is about
okay.
Mr.
We'll talk about that when we're off the air.
Yeah.
Mr. James Leonard, let me say this. I am not a lawyer. And let me say that again. I am not a lawyer. I do not practice law. Don't try to practice law. But as I understand it, if I own property, I cannot grant an easement to myself. Palmer Properties own the property that James Leonard bought and on the property that White Castle sits on. So since they own both properties, they cannot grant an easement to themselves, as I understand the law, not being a lawyer. So if they cannot, in fact, grant an easement to themselves, why is there a declaration of an easement on that property? That's my question. Second piece is, as a legislator, I see the racism, the bigotry in the state house. We have 92 counties in this state. 87 counties go to the poll and vote Democrat, Republican for the judges. 5 counties cannot. The 5 counties that cannot has the highest concentration of African Americans in those counties. We just, I think 2 years ago, usurped the right for citizens in Marion County to elect their judges. They're selected now. We had a city county council with 4 at-large members. That was great until all 4 of the at-large members became African American. Then the General Assembly took that right away from us to elect at-large city county councilors. That list goes on and on and on. So the reason why we got Unigov is because we were getting ready to have a Black mayor in the city of Indianapolis. And they gave us Unigov, a General Assembly, so that the people in Beech Grove could vote for their mayor and the Indianapolis mayor. The people in Lawrence could vote for the Lawrence mayor and the Indianapolis mayor. People in Southport could vote for the Southport mayor and the Indianapolis mayor. And so what you did was double the vote in the outlying communities in the white community, but cut the Black vote where Black folk live, cut it in half. And these are the kinds of things that go on in the General Assembly. And so we have to wake up and understand what happens to us when you elect folk and send them to the great state of Indiana State House. What are they doing? Why are they doing this to us? And we fought it. I voted against it, but we did not have enough votes to turn that. And we should not be losing our rights. We should be gaining rights. If you say you want to be fair and equitable, then it's time we get that done. Not only should I be standing with James Leonard, but all of us should be standing with him. This man served our country. We can have conversations, Antonio, like we're having right now, not worrying about anybody bombing us, attacking us, any foreigners attacking us, because of our military, because of where James Leonard served. He's back in this community, 38th and Keystone, a blighted area, trying to invest in this area so that he can give our people something that's good. We're not just boycotting the White Castle 38th and Keystone. We want to boycott the White Castles all over the United States. We want them to feel what we feel. When you mistreat us, this is the penalty for mistreating us. So yes, stop buying White Castles, don't buy White Castles, and tell them why. And when you write your elected officials, tell them that State Representative John Bartlett asked you to write them and tell them that you want them to support this man in his business that's not asking for any tax dollars to put this business in place, to bring something into our neighborhood that's going to look good. And this would be the only African-American owned self-storage place in Marion County, and I believe in the state of Indiana. So it's profitable. So why are you putting your knee on this man's neck and starving him economically? I'm opposed to it, and I will stand up on top of the mountain and tell the world that.
That's awesome. We got a caller. I guess Greg is trying to call in. Go ahead, Greg, what's your comment?
Yes, good afternoon, good evening. This is an interesting conversation. I'm honored to speak with Representative Bartlett and Colonel Leonard as well. I've met both gentlemen, and I think it's the problem that I see is White Castle is being rewarded for essentially sloppy legal work. If this easement did come up in title search, and it didn't, I'm sure that is the case. What should have happened is after they would have acquired something called by proscription, like prescription, but there's no one. And you do that when you openly and notoriously use property and give somebody else's property, and they don't stop you for a period of time. Now, when somebody like Leonard comes along, he's what we refer to as a good faith purchaser. He doesn't have notice of any of that reported something. So now, what my question was with respect to the previous owner, once they had used that land for a certain period of time, it should have gone to court under something called an action, under an action where you would determine ownership and boundary lines. And then going forward, that easement would then have been placed in the record. So as Colonel Leonard then purchased the property, there would have been notice. So essentially, the White Castle was able to prevail. It was called action to quiet title. Sorry. If White Castle prevailed, they have been rewarded for, I think, sloppy legal work.
Well, thank you for your call. Thank you for your call, sir. The caller was stating that there was some legal sloppy, as he would, representation on the purchase is what he is talking about. Mr. Leonard, I want you to go ahead and talk about that, and then I got a comment I want to share about what he just said.
Okay. Again, I appreciate the caller and the comment. That is the crux of the second lawsuit that we're in the midst of right now. This second lawsuit was filed by White Castle and Palmer Properties against me because I actually blocked off their access to my property. I put up barricades, said no trespassing, pre-construction site for self-storage coming soon. And they said to me, if you don't move it, we're going to sue you. And I said, well, let's get it started. And so that's the lawsuit that's in place now. And as a result, I'm not blocking the access. it is not disputed at this point who actually owned the land. Both White Castle and Palmer Properties acknowledge that the land was sold to me. And I pay taxes on it. I have liability insurance on the property, and nobody is saying it belongs to them. They're simply saying they have the right to drive across it until they no longer want to drive across it. In terms of sloppy reporting or title work, perhaps, but that's all of that is being reviewed by a judge right now. And we had a hearing on the 24th of September, and the judge was supposed to evaluate both sides' information. He made some comments, the judge did, that made me think he was going to rule in their favor. And but a ruling has not been made yet. So that's kind of where we are.
Well, that's understandable. And one of the things I want to say to that is this: as I was listening to the caller and as I was listening to you, let's look at the bigger picture. We can.
I can tell you my perspective on the bigger picture is this is certainly white privilege being manifested. I can't say it any other way. And I was walking the lot. I'm at the office now. I was walking the lot yesterday, just kind of looking at, what we're up against. And a driver stopped by and looked at me and he said, I've seen you on television. I've heard your story. He said, if you were white, you would not have to go through this. And obviously he was a brother and he was with his sister, with the young lady in the car. And we as a community knows that. But the folks that's ruling on this is dismissing that as though, no, this is just a business transaction. I beg to differ. I think that they are, in fact, specifically trying to drown me out. They've got a lot of money. All of these White Castles are owned by the Graham family. So it's not like they're franchised. They've made like $675 million, which is what I found online in 2017. Who knows what they're making now? So I think the only way we can get their attention is that number start going down. Obviously, I've been fighting hard with the little resources I've got. And for the most part, it's not having any effect on them, because if we continue to patronize and buy their sliders, et cetera, they're still generating income. So they're basically saying they'll wait me out. And I am hoping, I'm praying that the community understands what we're dealing with and come alongside me, like Representative John Bartlett and several others have. We've actually done a protest in front of White Castle. We've got a lot of community support. And I need to say this too. When I was asking for the city to approve the variance to put a self-storage unit here, I have phenomenal community support. I mean, there's about 3 neighborhood associations, all of which showed up for the hearing. We've had Representative John Bartlett, we had City Councilman Duke Oliver show up, and a few others saying, we like what this brother is doing. We want the city to approve it. We've got all of those approvals to put in self-storage at this location. It was only after all of those approvals was granted that White Castle says, time out, you can't build on this part of your land. And that should not be able to happen in 2020. I don't care how much money you got. And land ownership is precious, and I plan to use all the land I've got.
And that's to be respected, because the reality is this: the only way you can see power is with power, and if you're not making sure the word gets out, I would say, we got to make sure the word gets out, because White Castles is just wrong anyway. They making a lot of money off some processed food that and it's primarily in our communities, and they serving that garbage and slopping it up on some bread and pickles, and I'm quite sure people are catching cancer and heart attacks and diabetes and all that from that slop that they serve. And so, even if you don't agree with the fact that you shouldn't come alongside us, which I represent of this cause as well. If you don't believe in coming alongside us to protest this, then maybe you might live a little longer if you don't eat those sliders. Just keep that in mind as well. But Mr. Bartlett,
Yes, sir.
let me come back to you, sir, because when people are not in this entrepreneur space, they tend not to be able to understand the way things work from being discriminated against. And so sometimes, because you making that hourly wage, you just don't really have that as a fight or a struggle. But how important is Black businesses? Is that, especially in your district, how important is this to you that we have businesses that look like us in your district?
Extremely important all over the great state of Indiana, not just my district. We need economic development in certain parts of this state, and far too often we're left out. You can look at 46 in Arlington, where Devington Shopping Center is. We're getting some movement at 38th in Arlington now, but then 38th and Post Road, where the old Kroger used to be there. These areas are minority areas. These areas are where it's a high rate of crime, 46218, 46226. These areas, we're not getting the economic development. And African American folk pay taxes. We need a return on our investment in the great state of Indiana and in Marion County. Now, Mr. Leonard's building this self-storage. 60% of the monies, the dollars spent to build this is going to a minority contractor. Where do you see 60%? Now, some may question why not 100%. No, we don't want, we 60% is great, because just like we want to be included, we want to include them. We're talking about inclusion for all people. It's enough of the pie that everybody can have their slice. So we want to be all inclusive, but we certainly want to make sure that our folk get their fair share. So I don't know of anybody. They're building a new justice center downtown. I bet you it won't be 60% African American built down there. So here's the thing. When we're doing, support us. Quit looking for reasons not to support us. Quit trying to find fault in us, and come and stand with us. And if you see a brother that's doing something wrong, have that brother to correct that, but stand with that brother, stand with that sister. It's time out for that. And to have a knee on your economic neck in 2020 is just, it's unfathomable.
That's right. We got a caller. Denise, go ahead with your comment.
Hey, good evening. Thank you so much for having this conversation that is much needed.
Our pleasure.
Get some understanding on the White Castle issue. I don't understand why the state of Indiana, from a consumer's point of view, has not taken up this case. And then my second question is based upon the foreigners, the Vietnamese, the Koreans that come here, and their businesses are in the primarily predominantly Black neighborhood, and they sell everything for our hair and for our skin. And I don't see white products in there, and I don't see the products for the Chinese, the Vietnamese, or Koreans. So how are they able to start these businesses? You guys know the answer. And how do we get some of the money that we are spending on foreign businesses to make this billions? How do we tap into it? And then my last comment is, when we have businesses and we are servicing each other, we have the worst attitude. There is no customer service, and then a $5-10 plate always has to cost $15 to $20. Why is that?
Okay. Well, thank you, Denise. I'm going to did you hear the question, gentlemen?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I would like to speak to the piece about the foreign nationals coming into our area. First off, they can borrow money so cheap. Like they can borrow $7 million right around 1% interest. If you just put that money into a bank, you get like 2% interest. So you would almost have to be a genius to fail. So we cannot borrow money that cheap. And when they come in, they get special recognition here in America because they're a foreign national coming in starting a business here. We don't get that as African Americans. So that's that piece of the business. The second piece is, yes, we do need to be more cordial to one another when we walk into a business. However, I don't think that Mr. Leonard has that problem. He has several businesses, and I've never heard anyone complain about customer service at his business. But we do need to work on that. We need to work on that. We need to stop killing one another. So there are a lot of things that we need to work on. But then that is something that we need to do some more town hall meetings on. We need to start giving our young folk hope. And businesses like this that Mr. Leonard is putting in our community will give them economic growth and give them hope and give them a chance to come and see that if Mr. Leonard can do it, I can too.
Let me piggyback off that. As I indicated, when we started the business, we started off in 2007 off of 38th and Carrollton. We moved to this location in 2018. So since 2007, we have been in this community. Purposely, I wanted to put money back into my community. I want to also tell you that at least 60%, if not more, of my employees are from this community, are similar communities. So that has been my goal, that has been my objective, and that's been one of the things I have pride myself in trying to go out and recruit folks that look like me, who has a full understanding on that customer service piece that you just described, and make sure we meet that standard. So that's one of the things we're doing. And because I'm a part of this community, I come to this office every day. So if there's a piece of trash on the yard, I get it up. One of my employees get it up. If there's an issue on this premises, we deal with it. We have also been a community supporter for block parties, cleanup parties, assisting boys on gun control, those kinds of things as an asset to this community. And the more we are afforded the opportunity to grow business, the more those kinds of things we would take advantage of in providing or giving back to the community. Unlike several others, majority people on businesses, they don't even live here. They send money here and say, build this business, and they don't see it. I am here every day, and if something goes wrong, I'm aware of it. Another point I want to make is because we've got this significant amount of frontage, we have invited food truck owners, neighborhood locally owned food truck owners during this pandemic to park their trucks and sell their product as an alternative to White Castle, but also as an economic opportunity for them to grow their business or maintain their business during this downturn of economics for their situation. The cost to them to do that is nothing. We provide power, we provide the space, and that's not for compensation. Now, we did ask they provide their own security and they be in good standing with the health department, but that's also a link in which we give back to the community.
And I would like to, Antonio, I would like to ask one question. How many dollars does White Castle put back into our community?
Well, you can drop the mic on that one. That's a drop the mic moment right there, Dr. Mr. Representative. You might as well just drop the mic. That's it. Because that's real talk. But we're coming up to about 3 minutes before our show will end. So I just really want to go into this boycott and how we go about that, how we do that. Is there a shift of people that you're kind of wanting to stand out maybe on some of the busiest days on the weekends to kind of deter people from the 38th Street location? I live walking distance on a good day from there. Yeah. So how are we doing that, Mr. Leonard?
Well, okay, and I appreciate the opportunity to have that last soundbite. What I like to do, which is what you alluded to early on in the show, we want the White Castle family to feel this nationally. So White Castle have their sliders in Walmart, and they have them in Sam's Club. Okay, so I say let those White Castles stay in the frozen food section at Sam's Club and Walmart. In addition to that, don't just not buy White Castle products from 38th and Keystone. Don't buy them from any place. So I know when my relatives come to town, they're from Florida, they don't have a White Castle, so they want to go to White Castle. No, you don't want to go to White Castle. I'll take you to Country Kitchen. I'll take you to Popeyes. I'll take you to King's Ribs, but we're not buying White Castle. And there's a friend of mine, a white guy, who said, James, you just don't know how much I like the egg sandwiches. He said, but because of you, I am not buying White Castle products anymore. That's what we need. We need to have a significant economic impact on them for them to say, let's give this black man the land he paid for, and let's stop hindering him from growing his business.
Well, that's great. I got about 1 minute. I want to say this. I've already started fighting for you in relations to this boycott of White Castles on 38th Street. One of my pastor's friends I grew up with, Pastor Daryl Davis, he called me. He said, man, I was looking at your broadcast. I done a little thing on Facebook. And he said, I was in White Castles and I was eating White Castles. He said, then he clicked in and I wasn't supposed to be eating this. Can you tell me why? And I told him about you and I told him about the struggle that you're having. And he said, you know what? He said, as much as I like White Castles, he said, I won't be back because of Mr. James Leonard and his struggle with trying to get things done. So my hat goes out to you, sir. And again,
thank you very much. And
thank
I
you.
really appreciate the airtime you've given us. It is my struggle with White Castle, but it certainly is African American struggle with other covert racist practices that they push our way. So let's I mean, please help me fight. Please help me fight by looking at hashtag boycott White Castle and following what we're doing. But I also say as a community, let's just be tuned to what others are having to go through and make sure we stand behind each other. That's all I've got. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. My time is up. They getting ready to start playing commercials and all that kind of stuff and cut us off. But I want to thank you guys for coming on. Representative John Bartlett, you know how we roll. Anytime you bring anything to me, any level of influence I got, and I want to, use it as much as I possibly can. Hey, keep in mind, Dr. Lionel Rush came back home from the COVID. We didn't lose him, and he's been also an advocate for many years. So just continue to keep him in our prayers. Well, this has been another successful broadcast with Black Power Presents, and I just want you guys to keep in tune. Don't eat White Castle, especially on 38th Street. They ain't no good for you no way. All right, y'all have a good weekend.
Thank you.
No problem. Bye.